Here.
Mr. Houchins?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Note Ms. Shelton is absent. Dr. Newman?
Here.
And Mr. Fraley?
Here, thank you, Lenny. It appears we do have a quorum. We'll get into our first regular agenda item.
All right, item number 1, City Planning Commission for a general plan amendment to Plan Norfolk 2030 to incorporate new or modified actions, text, and maps based on recommendations from the April 2017 biannual evaluation of Plan Norfolk 2030.
Thank you, Lenny. Just want to make sure any commissioners have any comment or question on any of that. Lenny?
The motion is to recommend that the zoning text amendment be approved. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye.
All right. Item number 2 is also by the City Planning Commission. This is an amendment to amend Chapter 2 definitions and Section 13-6.7 communication antenna of the city zoning ordinance to add a definition for small cell facility and to amend related definitions and address small cell antenna as accessory structures.
Thank you, Lenny. I think we heard from Mr. Melita earlier. This is driven quite a bit by state legislature. Any comments you want to make on that, Mr. Melita?
Just, Mr. Chair, that the new changes passed by the General Assembly go into effect July 1st, and they permit authorities to establish a permitting process for any wireless small cell facilities that are requested in the locality. So this text amendment would exercise that permission and add to the planning department an administrative review process in the event we get those applications for that new type of 5G facility, which isn't available yet, but it's being worked on.
Thank you.
All right.
Lenny?
The motion's to recommend that the zoning text amendment be approved. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
And Mr. Fraley?
Aye.
All right. Item number 3, Norfolk Building Corp. For a change of zoning from R8 single family to R9 single family for a property located at 1101 through 1113 East Leicester Avenue.
Thanks, Lenny. Chris?
Good afternoon. This is an application from the Norfolk Building Corporation for rezoning from R8 Single Family District to R9 Single Family District at 1101 to 1113 East Leicester Avenue. It's located along the south side of East Leicester Avenue within the Bayview neighborhood, which is developed mostly with residential single-family duplexes. And the request is to allow for 4 new single-family homes, which would all be on lots 46.5 feet wide each. Right now it's one lot, one single lot, about 0.85 acres in size, and the proposal would be to subdivide that into 4 lots with 46.5 feet wide each. So again, the request is to change the zoning district from R8 to R9, which would allow for that subdivision of the 4 lots because the R9 district requires a minimum of 40 feet per lot, the width, and then 4,000 square feet in area. So one thing with this site is that it is within the rear portion of the site is within the Accident Potential Zone 2, which was established in conjunction with the Navy during the 2005 Hampton Roads Joint Land Use Study. And as part of that, there are certain zones, such as the APZ2, that have certain recommendations as far as what uses are or are not compatible in those zones. In this case, for single-family residential, the recommendation is that it not exceed, in the APZ2 zone, it not exceed 1 to 2 dwelling units per acre, and then so it's conditionally compatible. In this case, you have a lot that's less than an acre, and the proposal would be to put 4 dwelling units there, more than doubling the recommendation of the Joint Land Use Study. And the other thing, and it kind of ties in with the joint land use study as well, is the general plan, Plan Norfolk 2030, for this site designates as single-family traditional, which calls for lots between 50 and 70 feet wide. So the proposal to then put the lots at something less than 50 is incompatible with what the single-family traditional zoning or land use map designation calls for. So that's something that we're concerned about. In addition, the general plan includes the recommendations of the joint land use study, in that we wouldn't encourage or, approve of things that are incompatible with the recommendations of the joint land use study. So this is a proposed subdivision of what each lot would look like after subdivision. So you can see the 46.5 feet wide by 200 feet deep. So one thing we also did is a lot pattern analysis of that neighborhood within 1,000 feet to see if the change to R9, is in keeping with what we see in the neighborhood lot pattern. So what we found was that at a total of 482 lots within a 1,000-foot radius of this property, that only 52 or 12% were within or were in keeping with what the proposal is. So that's lots that are less than 50 feet in width. The remaining 430 or 88% would be in character with what's the current zoning there, R8 or R7, things that are at least 50 feet in width, lots that are at least 50 feet in width. So that's within 1,000 feet. And we also looked at the block face itself, and we found that a similar discrepancy, that 19 of those lots, or 89%, along the block face of East Leicester Avenue are in keeping with the current zoning and the lot pattern of 50 feet or greater. And that only 2 lots or 11% were, in keeping with what the proposal, so less than 50 feet in width. So lot pattern analysis shows really an overwhelming position that the existing pattern is what it is, and it doesn't support, increased density. Another important layer to this is that, that analysis was based on the R8 requirements, but actually 2/3 of the existing lots along East Leicester Avenue are more in keeping with the R7 zoning requirements. So that's 60 feet in lot width, 6,000 square feet lot area. So, a majority of the lots are actually in keeping with a zoning district that's less intense than the current zoning on the lot. So that sort of told us, okay, the existing lot pattern is what it is telling us something about, the neighborhood and, what sort of development is taking place there. So an increase to R9 would be, noticeably more intense than the current lot pattern. And, in that case, the R8 zoning upon the site doesn't represent, in our mind, an unreasonable zoning designation, given that surrounding context. So really, those are three of the main reasons why staff is recommending denial of this application. Again, the recommendations of the joint land use study, that the creation of 4 lots would, in effect, more than double the recommendations of what should go single-family residential in an APZ2. The prevailing lot pattern in the neighborhood just does not support the application, and the general plan itself also, is not consistent with what the proposal calls for. And lastly, staff would see this as spot zoning, because it'd be putting an R9 zoning district in an area that is completely R8, and it's inconsistent with the general plan. So those two things together would cause concern. So we received a letter of support from the Bayview Civic League, who indicated that they wanted this. They saw the area of the site as a blighted area that needed to be redeveloped, but they thought that the depth of the lots more than made up for the width the 46.5-foot width. So that was what we got from the Civic League. We also received a letter from the Naval Base, and I believe a representative for the Naval Base is here. He can speak more clearly to to what's in the letter, but essentially that they would be against anything that would go against the recommendations of the joint land use study. However, if there was something conditioned to basically prohibit development within an APZ2, the boundaries of an APZ2 zone, that they could be okay with it. But again, I'll let the representative speak to that more clearly. And also just to add to that, there aren't any proffers with this rezoning, as our policy has been, practice has been with the change to state law. So we don't have any proffers to ensure any of that. So staff recommends denial of this application.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions of Mr. Whitney, commissioners? Thanks, Chris. Stand by. Here to speak in favor of this application is the applicant, Jerome Miller.
Jerome Miller, 1507 East Bayview Boulevard, Suite B, Norfolk, Virginia, 23503. Good afternoon. The staff has done their job like they always do, and they're a lot more educated people than I am. But there are some discrepancies to the way that I believe they've analyzed the property. But the first point is we did not receive the letter from the Navy, the response from the Navy, until it was written yesterday, and it was forwarded to me at 12:30 this afternoon. So I've been in meetings, but I had planned on addressing, the Navy is very important to all of us, and nobody wants to do anything that would upset the Navy or it would be contrary to what the Navy's wishes are. But in the prior application for the property, I read that application, and the Navy's letter, unless I read it wrong, said that you got 4 houses on the property, and as long as you're not going to build in the APZ2 and you're not going to build more than 4 houses, that the Navy was okay with that. And that's why I proceeded with the estate and trying to correct what is a very blighted and bad situation that has been ongoing for too long. But if I had received the letter earlier, I was prepared to write a letter, even though I know that this business of no proffers is still kind of new to everybody. But we have no problem, if you don't want to use the word proffer, we have no problem saying that the back 60 feet or 66 feet, 2/3, which would be the southern 66 feet of all of the parcel, we could record a deed restriction that says no permanent structures whatsoever in this zone. The reason why I asked my surveyor to delineate what he thought was the APZ2 on my new survey when I reviewed the survey from the prior applicant, because the prior applicant used the word approximate, the approximate limits of the APZ2. I don't like the word approximate. I like to know where the line is. So my surveyor still hasn't delineated what he thinks is his interpretation of the APZ2, but the easier way to deal with it is, instead of drawing an approximate line, I believe that a better way of dealing with it is to just go ahead and say, all right, we'll do a deed restriction for the back third of the property, approximately 66 feet of the 200 foot of depth. And that will be, even the Navy will actually have a larger buffer area than the APZ2 currently delineates right now. So I have no problem doing that. And if we had gotten the remarks back a little bit earlier, I would have been happy to have issued that letter prior to today's hearing. Not a problem. Now, when the staff goes about doing their normal and customary analysis of 1,000 feet within the subject property, and you have an area like, we call this area Kenilworth, but it's really a chopped up area that took place over the last 100 years when it was the county before the city even annexed this property, 70 years ago approximately. So there is no platting pattern on this particular block. But if the city really went 1,000 feet, well, I guess that would be 500 and 500, they'd almost be over across Chesapeake Boulevard where there's about 800 to 900 apartments, you know, about one of the most densest areas in the city of Norfolk, from the old Ocean Air apartments all the way up to Leicester. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of apartments. So, but when I'm involved with a piece of property, I'm a little bit more focused than 1,000 feet, and particularly when you have an area that's been chopped up over such a long period of time, I'm more concerned with what's going on the block that I'm putting my money, I'm making my investment in. And so on this particular block, you have 24 parcels that front on Leicester from Chesapeake Boulevard easterly to where it dead ends. Of those 24 parcels, you have 11 duplexes, one 6-family apartment building, and then you've got my subject property, which is considered a non-conforming 4-family because you got 4 units on one parcel of property. So actually 13 of the 24 parcels that are on this street are non-conforming. So staff can cite that it's not part of the general plan, it's not consistent. The whole daggone street, or 54% of the street is inconsistent with the general plan. You've got more duplexes and renters than you have homeowners there. Now EDC has torn down the house next door to me and the one across the street, and they're building their product. So that's definitely an improvement. But when we go back to the 24 lots that are currently platted, and staff said that there's I thought that they said only a couple. I mean, I counted 4 50-foot frontages, a whole bunch of 38-foot, 53. You've even got all these flag lots, a 10-foot frontage, a 20-foot frontage, a 20-foot frontage. But when you add up all the units that occupy these 24 parcels, you come up with 43 units on 24 parcels for the density. And you can talk about platting patterns, but I think what's more important than a platting pattern is how the property is being utilized. And so you've got a lot of apartments, you've got a lot of non-owner occupants on this particular street, and that's probably why it looks as lousy as it looks. But 54% of the platted lots are non-conforming structures, or non-conforming in the way they're being used currently right now. So I've addressed, I don't have a problem restricting or encumbering the property to satisfy the Navy, that we will not be building anywhere. These lots being 200 foot deep, we have a 25-foot normal and customary setback. The houses are 45 feet in depth, and then we got about a 10-foot patio. So you're really only talking about the 80 to 90 feet is where we're going to build. Now, that leaves a lot of room in those big backyards that people can still enjoy without doing anything with permanent construction that would upset the Navy and would be consistent with the letter that the Navy issued last year for the prior applicant. The other thing too is the 46.5-foot frontage that we are asking for in reference to the 50-foot requirement. We have a really good selling plan that is 34 foot wide, and because we're so close to Chesapeake Bay, we had planned, or we plan on trying to send that best-selling plan back to the architect to rework the exterior facade to have a little bit more of a coastal type of a design. We think that would be appropriate for this location. We have no problem getting the architect to get a little creative on that too. At 34 foot wide with 46.5 foot wide widths, that still leaves 12.5 feet. So you can have 6 1/4 and 6 1/4 side yards. Even under the R8 50-foot requirement of minimum width, you only have to have 5 and 5. So the houses aren't going to be crowded anymore on this particular parcel when we're done developing it than they would have been if we had the full 200 foot and we built 39.5 foot. I got a plan that's 39.5 foot. If we had built those 4 models right next to it, they would actually be more crowded onto the property. So we'll have a little bit more room between the houses. So the spot zoning thing, I think sometimes that's why the R9 district was created. Lenny could probably say, no, we didn't create it because of this. But at the same time, when you have lots, this is and also of those 24 pieces of property on this block, there is nothing close to it as far as being 180 and 188 foot, 186 foot wide. So you're not setting a precedent. There's nothing else like it, like this property here. But when we go back to the spot zoning argument, the R9 district, when you have extremely deep lots that are different than the typical 25 by 100 foot plotting patterns that predominate the city of Norfolk, or the old R2A zoning, when you get into a situation where you have this kind of a piece of property, I believe that this is the perfect application for the R9 and perhaps lends itself to be used in this case where we have a lot of depth and we can go ahead and still do a nice job putting 4 houses on the property, not crowding them up, still giving the people huge backyards to enjoy, going ahead and encumbering the property in the back third in order to make sure that we stay well away from the APZ2. And a matter of fact, not only are we going to stay away from it, but those restrictions will run with the land forever. So that means all the subsequent owners, they have to abide by that. They'll never, it will be a no man's land as far as permanent structures and development goes. So it's forever wild back there. So I think that addresses that situation. So we've got a high density street. We've got a real irregular planning pattern. But I think that we can overcome all of those things and create something really nice, much nicer. The Civic League of Bayview, we naturally go to every Civic League that we work in and ask them what they think about our plans, do they have any concerns, and we will listen and create a dialogue if necessary to address any of their concerns. And in this particular regards, they did not have any concerns. They did not have any problems with regard to what we said we were going to do. And I've been working with the Bayview Civic League for 40 years. And my office is located on Bayview Boulevard. And I am a member and supporter of the Bayview Civic League and have been for forever. I was born and raised on Bayview Boulevard a long, long time ago. So we're sensitive to the neighborhood, but the neighborhood said they're fine with this. And I think that, you know, whenever you have the neighborhood saying they're fine with something, I think that speaks volumes.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank
Any
you.
questions, commissioners, of Mr. Miller? Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Here to speak against this application, Steve Jones.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Jones. I'm the Community Plans and Liaisons Officer for Naval Station Norfolk. Address 1530 Gilbert Street, Suite 200, Suite 2000, Norfolk, Virginia. Each of you should have received a packet, a letter from the commanding officer in regards to this application. Staff has done a great job in the report. In that regards, I'll support everything he says in regards to the APZ in that regards. But in regards to it, the property is at 0.85 acres. It is a greater intensity than what would be allowed under the APZ under the ACUs. But under the joint land use study and then the 2030 plan, those became grandfathered in, the existing uses, so that's understood. So the dividing the lot into 4 lots versus the 3 that is allowed by law or rights is an intensification, so that would be against the ACUS in that regard. We are a good neighbor, want to be a good neighbor in that regards with the city and the community at large in that regards. No, one of the things we did note that in the Norfolk plan, the Plan Norfolk 2030, it says no intensification. That would be an intensification, so that is the reason that we were recognizing and standing in opposition to it in that regards. But we're only concerned about the areas that's in the APZ, Accident Potential Zone 2. The applicant has made statements here today in regards to building outside of that. We're only really concerned with safety and preventing those that don't need to be in harm's way from being in harm's way in that regards. And so that's where the Navy's position on that. I stand by for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions, sir? Steve, commissioners? Yes, sir.
I do have a question, just a point of clarity. The builder is proposing keeping his permanent structure outside of the accident potential zone, and if that's within our purview or the purview of the city to accept, are you saying that you oppose that, or because the letter?
No, that it goes against the ACUS, but it's in keeping with the JLUS, which is an agreement between the city and the Navy, so it would be acceptable.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Somewhat. The letter, I guess, states that you would have no comment to it, but I think I hear you saying that you would oppose it.
No. The ACUS document itself, it's not in keeping with that, but that would be in keeping, it'd be grandfathered in. So it would be, in that regards, when it says no comment, that's in essence saying we would not object.
Okay.
Does that answer your question more clearly?
Thank you, Mr. Houchins. You got another question?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
I'm not clear. Looking at the map over there, am I correct to assume that the shaded area represents the APZ 2?
That's correct, ma'am.
So that it passes through one corner of the proposed lot?
Well, it's my understanding that the proposal is for 4 lots.
Right.
Right.
And that a portion of each of the 4 lots would be in the accident potential zone.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, what you talked about it being grandfathered in. Would you specifically state what you're referring to?
There's existing conditions that already exist before the joint land use was signed into agreement.
Right.
And what was in agreement with the city at that point in the Navy was there would be no intensification over what's existing now.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm not referred to grandfathering in. What was existing was 3 residential lots.
Okay.
Or well, actually 1 here, but by rights could do intensify, I guess, up to 3.
So if the permanent structure is within the APZ, that contributes towards the intensification. But if the backyard is in the APZ, that does not contribute toward the intensification?
We're concerned about people and
I know,
presence,
but
so
I grew up in a house where people are in the backyard and the
Yeah.
house, so I'm trying to figure out
if there
what
was a
contributes
pool
towards
located,
intensification.
if you put a pool within the APZ too, and it was an assembly area, that would be a concern. But if it's, as the applicant said, it is going to be a naturalized area, undeveloped, that would not be an intensification. That would be the property would be divided into 4 parcels,
Right.
but there would be no additional personnel in that particular part of the land.
Because it's the backyard, not the permanent structure.
Yeah.
So, Steve, I'm sorry, let's hear another
But
question.
what is grandfathered in is the fact that is 3 lots, that could be divided into 3 lots, that's what's grandfathered in. I
Well,
find
that
that a
and
tad
the fact that
confusing.
there are 4 houses on the property now.
Yeah,
They're in bad shape, but that's an existing condition as far as they're concerned.
But if you went back to the ACUS, it says 1 to 2 residential homes per acre.
Which you would have to be in South Carolina to get that.
Pay no attention to that, Steve.
Well, I didn't know where to go with it.
Any questions of Mr. Jones? Any further questions? Steve, thank you.
Thank you.
Comment, questions, any clarification, commissioners? Hearing none. Mr. Newcomb?
I'm sorry, sir.
Please, wait a minute, I just, I jumped the gun. We need to be in a rebuttal period. Mr. Miller, you have any rebuttal at all?
Not a rebuttal, but I will do everything that I can do to make them.
Come on forward.
Come forward, sir, thank you.
This development isn't as important to me to alienate the Navy for all the good things that they do for our area. I will work closely with Steve and the commander of the base, and I will make them comfortable with, in letter form, provide copy to staff, that we create a no-build zone that exceeds what the current APZ delineation appears to be on the survey that I saw. And I feel confident that they will actually pick up a greater buffer than they currently have right now. So I will make that promise to everyone that, you know, if I can't make them happy, then we won't do it.
Mr. Miller, let me ask you something on that. So are you saying that on these lots, a prospective buyer, you will, through some sort of covenant, delineate what they can and cannot do in their backyard?
Well, when I made the initial application, Chris called me and said, hey, you know, the other applicant, the applicant from last year had put it on the plat, the proposed plat, but they were working under the pre-proffer timeframe where we're, you know, and I don't know what I can tell you guys or what I can't tell you. I mean, it's a gray area. I think that everyone still would prefer to, really prefer to have proffers, to be honest with you. Then I can make representations, and if I tell you I'm going to do something, I still do business with a handshake out here. I don't have to have something in writing to make me do what I tell you I'm going to do. But the answer to your question is a deed restriction, I think, is better than putting anything on a plat with the word approximate on it. I think that, you know, we just go ahead and enlarge the area. It appears to me on scale that the westernmost portion of the APZ2 is approximately 50 feet, and as it crosses the property, it narrows down to approximately 20 feet. So what I'm saying is, let's just go ahead and give a little bit more area. Let's go ahead and take the back third of the 200 feet. That would be approximately 66 and 0.66. All right, that's 66 and 2/3. That would be the back third. And say, okay, we're going to record a deed restriction that will affect any and all lots that we create. And it will be forever non-buildable, period. No permanent structures whatsoever. I don't have a problem with that, and I think that should kind of they actually gain a little bit more of a buffer in that particular regard.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Any other questions of Mr. Miller before he steps down? Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Steve, anything you'd like to add? Is your time for rebuttal?
As the applicant says, I don't think the Navy would object to that proposal if it's a deed restriction in that regards, if that's within your preview. Again, I don't know, that's your decision in that regards, but that would not be an objection to the Navy.
Thank you. Any comment, question? Thank you, Steve. Mr. Newcomb?
Mr. Chairman, before the vote, I just want to make sure, there's been an awful lot of discussion about the APZ. The reason that staff recommend denial has almost nothing to do with the APZ. It's the fact that the lot sizes are smaller than Plan Norfolk 2030 would suggest for this area, and that on balance it appears that R8 is the correct zoning category for this neighborhood, and that's the reason for which staff is recommending denial, and has very little to do with the APZ. That sort of adds a little bit to it, but I didn't want there to be confusion that that was the reason for the staff recommendation. The staff recommendation is a lot more basic than the presence of the APZ across the back of the property.
Thanks for that clarification, George.
All right.
Lenny?
The motion before you is to recommend that the change of zoning be approved. Mr. Hales.
You know, the state did not do us a favor last year when they outlawed proffers in residential properties like this, rezonings like this. There are two issues. One, of course, is the APZ zone, which, in as much as we have a guarantee, we can't have a proffer, we cannot put it in writing. And Mr. Miller, I do believe that you do a business handshake and that. The other piece of it is, you know, I've been a fan over the years of sometimes allowing or voting for rezoning to a smaller lot size in communities that need outside investment, because the city can only do so much investment dollars in there, and certainly that would help a community that probably needs some outside assistance in building new structures, which hope will trigger other structures to get built. However, when we did that, we always had proffers, and we always looked at the quality of the building, look at the house, make sure that it's going to fit within the neighborhood, make sure it's not going to be some cheap rental property or something like that. And again, we don't have that guarantee and can't have that guarantee. In both areas, the proffer thing just locks our hands up right now to say, you know, unfortunately for me, the answer is no. For both reasons. Number one, we can't guarantee it's not going to be in the APZ zone. And then number two, to keep within the R8 lot size that exists there today. So I do apologize, but that's my vote.
Ms. Austin?
I agree with Mr. Hales. I am impressed with what you presented and what you were willing to do. However, I do think that the basic recommendation of staff really does have to do about Plan 2030 and the lot size, and so I'm going to also vote no.
Mr. Houchins?
Go ahead.
Chair, I do have one question before I cast my vote, and I would like to ask Adam, is there anything that we can request of the applicant that would not be in conflict with what we seem to understand as proffer issues?
There isn't anything legally binding that you can request. As Mr. Miller indicated, there is available to the owner the opportunity to record restrictions in the public land records. It just so happens, I know Mr. Miller has a long history with Norfolk, it just so happens that before the adoption of the proffer scheme, that was sort of the old way of doing things, is that the land records would record whatever the restriction was, because that was the mechanism by which the agreement became legally binding. So that is available. You can ask for it, but you could not hold the applicant to his word legally, or he could just do it voluntarily. But other than the agreement and the understanding that this is an applicant who has appeared before you before and will likely appear before you again, there isn't a legal mechanism to enforce an agreement.
Thank you. I agree that it is unfortunate that we are no longer in a position to ask for proffers. When I came here on the commission, I was just around long enough to appreciate it, and then it was gone. But with that said, I'll echo the words of my counsel here, is that you've been before us before and you will be before us again. So I'm going to take a chance and take you on your word. And with that, I vote aye.
Mr. Murphy?
No.
Dr. Newman?
I'm going to agree with a couple of my other commissioners on a number of things with Mr. Hales and with Mr. Houches down there. But I'm going to give you the benefit that you are going to be back in front of us and that you are going to do a decent job on that property, and I'm going to vote aye.
Mr. Fraley?
No, I will make that recommendation to council. Thank you.
All right. The next item before us is number 4, New England Antiques and Collectibles, for a special exception to operate a used merchandise establishment at 3118 East Princess Anne Road.
No opposition, Lenny?
All right, the motion before you is to recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye, we'll make that recommendation to council. Good luck.
All right. Next item is number 5, Universal Wireless, for a special exception for a commercial communication tower at 7511 Avenue J.
And here to speak, or does not wish to speak, we do want to acknowledge for the record, against this application, Ryan Chapman. Oh, I do want to speak. You do want to speak? Come forward, sir.
My name is Ryan Chapman. I live at 1004 Warnoka Avenue in Norfolk, Virginia. And I came to speak against building this tower because there's been very few studies conducted on electromagnetic radiation and its effects to people. And they want to build this tower right across the street from an elementary school, Oakwood Elementary School. And some researchers have conducted a study, and they studied kids who had cancer and who didn't have cancer. And they found that some of the ones that had cancer had exposure to RF radiation. And in Maine, they have a town called Bar Harbor, and they have a city council has a rule that says radio towers must be 1,500 feet back from schools and daycares.
Excuse me, are you aware the school is closed
No.
and it's been sold?
No.
It will not be a school.
All right.
Yeah,
gonna be an office
I was gonna
building.
make that point to you as well, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lenny. I was gonna let him finish and tell him the same thing, but you may have saved us a lot of time. Any questions or comment, commissioners?
I'll just make a comment that I'm actually interested in what you bring up, and really kind of piqued my interest in making sure that we do have all the safeguards in place for a technology that we may not know all the health benefits of. So I do appreciate you coming down. You certainly got my attention on things, and I think we'll raise those points down the road. So the trip was not without merit today.
All right. The motion before you is to recommend that the special exception be approved. Excuse me. Subject to the conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye, we'll make that recommendation. Council, good luck. Item 6, Lenny?
Item 6, artisan body piercing and tattoo, for a special exception to operate a tattoo parlor/school at 7734 Hampton Boulevard, Suite B.
Chris, it looks like you're gonna be the star for today, huh?
It looks that way. Good afternoon again. This is an application from Artisan Body Piercing and Tattoo for a special exception for a tattoo parlor / school at 7734 Hampton Boulevard. It's a currently developed with a shopping center, commercial property, and this would go in, the proposed tattoo parlor would go into a suite most recently occupied by a barbershop. The property itself is Zone C2, Corridor Commercial, which allows the tattoo parlors by special exception, which is before you today. Hours of operation for the proposed establishment is 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then 1 p.m. until 6 p.m. on Sunday. You just have a few photos of the shopping center to browse through. So as part of the conditions of this special exception, staff is proposing the installation of landscape planters in the area on the screen in front of you. This would help spruce up the entrance to the tenant spaces, and it would all be done in conjunction with our landscape architect with Recreation Parks and Open Space, as far as the species and then the placement of the planters. So that's part of the conditions of approval. In addition, due to the staff received a few letters, one of which was from this joint letter from the Meadowbrook and Lock Haven Civic Leagues, expressing a lot of concern, with some of which was directed at the use, but most of it was directed at the condition of the shopping center. So they wanted to see a plethora of improvements to the shopping center. So in response to that, staff did want to try to address that as best we could. So that includes, as part of the conditions of approval, to not only require the planters, which would happen before a business license, but also within 3 months of final approval of the ordinance, that the shopping center would be improved with a number of things proposed by the property owner, including pressure washing of the building, exterior painting, upgrading some of the signage, maintenance and some repairs to the roof, and some of the stormwater issues, and also some of the columns in front of the tenant spaces, as well as the Civic League had mentioned some concerns with the large lights on top of the Dollar Tree part of the shopping center. So in an effort to try to bring all parties to the table and try to mitigate some of these concerns, staff is proposing to have all these things done to the shopping center building within 3 months of adoption of the ordinance. And so staff does recommend approval of this application with the conditions as proposed, including the ones I just mentioned. Staff sees tattoo parlors as just like any other retail service in the city, much like the barber shop that it's replacing or proposing to be replaced with. And so staff sees the use as appropriate at this location, and with the conditions attached to it, provides additional opportunities to improve the site. It's our understanding that there's a couple of driveways in front of the property on Hampton. The Public Works Department is working with the Hampton Road Sanitation District and the property owner to try to get those taken care of and closed at a later time. So that will occur separate from this special exception process. So with that, staff recommends approval of this application with the conditions as proposed, and we'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions of Mr. Whitney, commissioners?
One quick one. When you say planters, are we talking about in the ground digging up concrete, or are we talking above the ground planters?
Above the ground, so heavy enough to not be moved very easily. But yeah, we didn't want to. There's some kind of utility here. I believe it is some sort of water vaults or water valves here. So we were concerned with, digging up that concrete to put landscaping. So we thought a good compromise would be some planters as approved by the.
My fear of planters are, we had them over on Little Creek Road. Susan probably remembers. There were nice plywood boxes that stayed out there for like 3 years. So above the ground, is there any protection on what these planters are and what they're going to look like and what they're going to be, or?
So we will leave the sort of the installation of them and the placement of them to the expertise of the landscape architect. We thought that was most appropriate, so that they can not only approve of the species of the plants, but also the placement of them. We also don't want it to restrict pedestrian access to the suites. So we wanted to give some flexibility there, but also ensure that whatever is being placed there is being looked at by the experts in our mind, which are the Recreation Parks and Open Space Department.
Chris, I got a question for you or for Adam. We've talked about the property owner making improvements, but the property owner isn't the applicant. How do we ensure that the property owner is held to doing these improvements?
We don't issue business licenses until the conditions are complied with.
We don't determine who makes the improvements. What we say is they have to be done.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, typically it's just a timeline presented in the conditions, but
So if they're not settled, then you won't get a business license, essentially. Okay.
Chris, did you get any feedback, direct or indirect, from the surrounding civic leagues?
yeah, so we received a joint letter early on from the Meadowbrook and Lock Haven Civic Leagues, which was in essence more of a comment on the shopping center property itself and just the numerous issues that they saw with that. So that's what we got. Some of it was related to the use, but most of it seemed to be stemming from the property condition and in the building condition. So we also received letters and emails from other citizens in the surrounding area. We received at least one that countered the position of the Civic League, in that it may not represent all the views of that area. So, we received a lot of feedback, and I think if anyone's here to speak to those a little better, I think that would be most appropriate.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Any other questions of Mr. Whitney, commissioners? Thank you.
Yep.
The chair wants to acknowledge the following people who are here in favor of this application, but have chosen not to speak. Joseph Schimmel, Tony Alvarez, Brianna Van Hamel, Ashley Hall, and Megan Reddy. Thank you all for coming in support of this application. We appreciate your attendance. Here to speak in favor of this application is Katie Schimmel.
Hello, my name is Katie Schimmel. I'm at 714 Wingfield Avenue, Chesapeake, Virginia, 23325. We are aware of the disrepair that the shopping center is in, and we have been speaking with the property manager very, very closely, and she has agreed to do quite a few things, actually, to kind of better the whole process for this. The business that I already have right now for Artisan Body Piercing is over on Military Highway. We just won the 2017 Gold Best of competition for best place to get tattooed. And we have great ratings throughout the entire city. So I really, really want this. And I really appreciate you for taking the time to look into it.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to come down and talk to us about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also here in favor of this application, Tony McLeod. I hope I said your name right.
No. It's okay. It's Tony McLeod.
McLeod, okay.
I am agent for the owner, J Legacy LLC. I work for Pembroke Commercial Realty at 4460 Corporation Lane, Suite 300, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23462. I'm here to address some of the issues that were raised by the civic leagues. The building is sound. It is not in disrepair. We already had budgeted for this year, and the budget was prepared the end of November, the beginning of December 2016. So none of this work was planned after the complaints. We're going to paint the building. We got a pressure wash, do some touch-up painting. We just had to repair where a truck hit the side of the building, a delivery truck for Dollar Tree. And we were going to paint it. We were just going to paint it the existing colors, but now we've changed it. We're going to do the Dollar Tree colors, the tan and the taupe around the whole building. The parking lot last year, we spent $155,000 on, $58,000 on parking lot repairs. And most of the pictures that you were seeing of the sidewalk in front, that's city property. We still have a couple of open tickets. Well, they've closed them, and we've tried to reopen them for repairs that need to be made. Swink Street is We've had that since June of 2016. We've had an open work order for that. I am also currently the property manager for Artisan Body Piercing's current location. No complaints, no problems. The space is clean. She actually helps us pick up cigarette butts and whatnot from outside because there is like an adult daycare behind, which is getting ready to close. And we've had no violations from the city for Hampton Boulevard Plaza. The light fixtures that are on top of the building that were a complaint, they were blinding people, shining in people's houses. Those lights have been there since like November 2005, or 1985. They've been there for over 30 years. Okay. The planters, I actually brought a picture that the landlord approved. They're concrete and they're very heavy. So Christine Nichols? Christine Fisher. She's already approved these, and we are most likely going to put 2 out on the courtyard somewhere there. But we can't dig in there. There's too much. There's electrical, plumbing, and sewer lines going through there. Yeah, you can see where the water and sewer is marked.
Give that copy of the plan to the secretary. We just pass it along since there was a question. Thank you.
Superior Marble. Some of the conditions on here that under C that they gave back to us, like I said, we were planning to pressure wash the sidewalks in the building and do some minor repair, scrape some loose paint, caulk some cracks, and we're going to paint the entire building. And that was already, like I said, budgeted and planned. And let's see, the columns are a cinder block. There's nothing wrong with them. There's no chips, cracks, or anything. So we're just going to paint those the same color as the Dollar Tree colors. And then the wording on the roof, there are no damages to that roof. That roof does not leak at all. There are a few abandoned penetrations up there from when it was a Belo grocery store, but we've been hesitant to take them off because if we do, we're going to open up, so we just haven't done it. But there are some flashing issues with the gutters, so we were going to definitely fix that this year. Yeah, let's see. I think that was all. That's all I really have.
Well, thank you, Ms. McLeod. Any questions of Ms. McLeod? Thank you. Also here to speak in favor of this application, William Wortman.
I didn't want to speak. It should have been the.
Okay.
No problem.
We thank you. No problem. Mr. Newcomb, there is no opposition to this application.
All right. The motion before you is to recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
I certainly know there has been some discussion, some letters from the Civic League. I wish they were here to ask a few questions. I wonder if that recommendation or that letter represents the full view of the Civic League or not. And I also will say that, from my personal standpoint, these businesses, tattoo parlors, the hours of operation are very reasonable in a community setting. There are far less complaints at these facilities than there are at bars and restaurants or entertainment facilities. So coming into the neighborhood there, like they sit in many other neighborhoods next to West Kent and Chelsea and along 21st Street, I don't see where this business would be treated any differently, would bring any undue hardships into the neighborhood. There are already businesses established in this shopping center that aren't going anywhere. Not allowing you to go in is not going to put any additional pressure on the owner of the building to do anything different than what they've already offered and continue to do. So, I've felt confident with you all going in there. I appreciate your track record. I appreciate you bringing another business to the city. I'll vote aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Before I vote, I do want to acknowledge that we have received letters against this from Edward Walcott and another letter in favor from residents of the Meadowbrook Civic League area. 1 for and 1 against them. But I echo Dr. Newman's position. I think this is an increasing trend that tattoo parlors are becoming popular once again. The old adage, what goes around comes around. Back in the 40s and the 50s, there were tattoo parlors everywhere in our city, and folks took exception to it because of a lot of the untoward activity that evolved from some of those locations. We're not seeing that today. And a lot of it has to do with the type of ownership that we see in these locations. Certainly, we will want to continue to monitor the continuing evolution of tattoo parlors in our city, but at this point, I see no reason why I shouldn't vote in favor of this application. I vote aye.
All right.
And we'll make that recommendation to council. Good luck with it.
Application number 7, Captain's Galley, for a special exception to operate an eating and drinking establishment at 8166 Shore Drive, Suite C.
Thanks, Lenny. And here to speak in favor of this application is Kathy Cunningham.
Yes, I'm Kathy Cunningham, 8166 Shore Drive, A204, Norfolk, Virginia, 23518. I've been the owner of Captain's Galley for 7 years when it opened business in 2010. I'd like to thank the staff for the recommendation. However, I would like to address one of the conditions. They've indicated that there will be no smoking outside on the deck. In the 7 years that I've been in business, I allow my customers to smoke outside on the deck. Putting up signs and forbidding them from doing that will only take business away from me. I'd like approval to eliminate that condition.
And you'd like us to do that right now, wouldn't you?
Well,
but we don't typically do that.
So, whoever did it, take it off, please.
Well, I can certainly speak to this. I've, as a physician, certainly I've handled these requests in the past, and and I'll kind of offer the counter argument that certainly we know the health risks of smoking. We hope you have some patrons that may not smoke, may want to choose there to come otherwise, and it is certainly a growing trend. It's certainly the science behind it is very clear. And, representing the citizens across this entire city, I still feel very strongly, knowing very well the health risks of smoking, that in an area that other people should have equal access to or have to pass through, that it's just not a good practice for our city to continue to allow that. So I think that we've put a lot of thought into our smoking regulations here. I'd like to see them even get tighter. So I feel strongly, personally, that we'll keep that in place.
I think I was leading to echo in those very comments, Ms. Cunningham. This is a circumstance whereby, unfortunately, there are situations that present health hazards, and for us to set an environment that undermines the potential of maintaining those positive health traits, not in keeping with the spirit of what we want to try to bring forward as a city. But notwithstanding that, I think that going forward, if you'd like to address that sometime in the future, we'll consider that. But I think the stand of this commission at this point is one in which we would want you to abide by the guidelines that we had established in accordance with the recommendation with your application. Okay. Any other question or comment? There is no opposition to your application, despite what Dr. Newman and I have said.
No opposition. No.
Lenny?
The motions recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye. We'll make that recommendation to council. Good luck.
All right. Item number 8, Handsome Biscuit, for a special exception to operate an eating and drinking establishment at 4208 Monarch Way, Suite 4200.
And Lenny, there is no opposition to this application. Robin Thomas is here to answer any questions, however.
All right.
Good to see you, Robin.
The motion before you is to recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
She's got a promotion. Do I get to pay with that? Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Alchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye, we'll make that recommendation to council. I am hopeful now, before we leave that, by having a second, if we have a second Hanson Biscuit, I'll be able to get in the first one without having to stand outdoors.
That's right, yeah. Well, now has more parking lot across the street, so.
Okay.
All right. Next item, number 9, streets for a special exception operating an eating and drinking establishment at 915 West 21st Street A. This is to allow the existing restaurant to add outdoor dining.
Thanks, Lenny. There's no opposition to this application here. To answer questions, the applicant Neil Bowden Streets, and of course, the aforementioned Robin Thomas.
The motion before you is to recommend this special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye.
All right.
Good luck with that. We'll make that recommendation to council. Thank you.
Stripers, Waterside, for a special exception to operate an eating and drinking establishment at 333 Waterside Drive, Suite 105. As we've informed you before, this is an entity operating in Waterside that is independent of the actual operator, and we expect to see a few more of these as they begin to fill out the empty spaces.
Thank you, Lenny. There is no opposition to this application here. In favor is the applicant Timothy Lynch.
All right.
You want to share anything with us, Mr. Lynch? Thank you.
I think you're good too.
The motion is to recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
And Mr. Fraley?
Aye. Good luck with that.
All right. We are going to do number 11,
Right.
the Dirty Buffalo, for the following special exception at 4213 East Little Creek Road, eating and drinking establishment, sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premise consumption.
All right, so
Matthew.
I'll just do a quick presentation. So this will be the second location for the Dirty Buffalo within the city, and they're proposing to operate within the East Beach Marketplace Shopping Center, within the previous Ruby Tuesdays out parcel, and the request is for an eating and drinking establishment, and then for the request for ABC off-premise, which would be for growler sales. And the site is located in a C3 retail center retail center district, zoning district. And here are the comparison of the different operational hours and seating capacity between the previous Ruby Tuesdays and the Dirty Buffalo. And we do have a letter of unanimous support from the East Ocean View Civic League for the request as proposed. And then we have a letter of conditional support from the Camellia Shores Civic League, which is the civic league behind the shopping center. And their conditions that they state in their letter, which is included in your packet, request for them to scale back the hours to the similar to Ruby Tuesdays, 11 p.m. during the week, and then midnight on Friday and Saturday night. And then they would also like for them to withdraw their application for the ABC off-premise, which is an ordinance in front of you that's specifically catered for the growler fills that they've requested and what they've operated at their other facility. So staff is actually recommending support of the proposal as proposed by the applicant. And if you have any questions, I'll stand by.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions of Mr. Simons, commissioners? Thank you, Matt. There is no opposition to this application. Stephanie Gilbert is here to answer any questions. Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Lenny?
The motion before you is to recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report, and special exceptions, plural. So, Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye. Good luck with that. We'll make that recommendation to council.
All right. Origin Wine Social for a special exception to operate an establishment for the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-premises consumption at 251 West Butte Street.
Thanks, Lenny. Here to speak in favor of this application is Matthew Ambrosio. Excuse me, sir. I did my best. Thank you.
Matthew Amborski will be operating out of 251 West Butte Street, Norfolk, Virginia. Just a couple points I wanted to make to the committee regarding some things in the packet. It raised a concern over parking, being that there's no designated parking. It will be a retail shop, so short visits, that kind of thing. You know, once a month, twice a month, I want to host a wine lecture where I'll be teaching for a couple hours. At that point, or if there's an issue with on the street, I'm catty corner from the Freemason Garage, straight across the corner from me, and I plan on building a good clientele of regular business, and something I'll do for anybody who comes in with a parking tag, they'll all know this. You get that, $1.30 or whatever it is discounted off your purchase to offset and offer parking. And then there was another concern about the blocking of traffic, and I know, wine comes on delivery trucks and things like that. I am one storefront from the corner where there's a 50-foot stretch of loading zone, so they won't have to double park on the street to do that, and that's a pretty readily accessible loading zone. Beyond that, I'm here for any questions, and
Thank
I'd
you,
love to be
sir.
part of that community there.
Thank you. Any question?
I think you're referring to the Butte Street Garage.
Yes,
Freemason
sir.
Garage is 2 blocks
Yes,
away,
yes,
so.
yes, the Butte Garage.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
I want to contribute when I can.
Butte Street Garage, exactly. Any other question? Thank you, sir.
Sir.
The chair also wants to acknowledge it here in favor of this application, Eva Fuse. Did I say that right? Thank you. Lenny?
Motions to recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to the conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales.
Thank you for making an investment in our city. I vote aye.
Ms. Austin.
Yes.
Mr. Houchins.
Aye.
Mr. Murphy.
Aye.
Dr. Newman.
Aye.
Mr. Fraley.
Aye. Good luck with that. We'll make that recommendation to City Council.
All right. Number 13 is Origami Asian Bistro for a special exception to operate an entertainment establishment with alcoholic beverages at 5957 East Virginia Beach Boulevard, Suite 18. This is an application to allow the applicant to modify the floor plan and change the managers.
Hi, this is an application by Origami Asian Bistro, located at 5957 East Virginia Beach Boulevard. It is the corner suite there. It is an existing establishment. It is on, as I mentioned, East Virginia Beach Boulevard between Poplar Hill and Glen Rock. It is an existing entertainment establishment. In a C3 district, as we know, anyone wanting to serve alcohol or have entertainment in a C3 is required to have a special exception. They do have a special exception. They actually attained their original special exception in September of 2014. They did revise the floor plan and they increased the area of the establishment, so they increased the capacity in 2015. They were back again before you. Since that time, we had received multiple complaints about the establishment. Complaints to the effect that they were in violation of their special exception. A group of staff, including planning, city attorney's office, the fire marshal, ABC, and the police, met with them over the course of probably a couple months, trying to explain to them what the issues were and what they needed to do to address our concerns. Taking that into account, they did change the management, and they have submitted this application, which fixes some of the other shortcomings. One of them being that we now have a complete and accurate set of managers, and the current manager has operated in Norfolk before, and I think hopefully we'll find success with him. And we do now have a floor plan that accurately reflects what the applicant is proposing. One of the things on the floor plan that we do say is that the dance floor shall be of a different material. the floor plan that they have in the establishment it's not of a different material, but it is clearly demarcated, and that's our concern, that we know where the dance floor is. It's a different color, so it's very clear where the dance floor is. One of the issues we were having before is that, as you know, we don't allow promoters. Promoter, basically what they do is they hand the keys over to a third party, and that third party runs the establishment. They don't really care that there's a special exception. It can be revoked. They're there, they operate, they leave, and they sometimes can leave some difficulty behind. We work with them very closely to understand or to explain to them that that is not permitted here. So with this new special exception, this should resolve the issues, and I think we are confident in our work with them over the couple of months that they have a much better understanding of what is acceptable. But just in case, we did put in the conditions that this special exception will expire in 18 months. What that does is that gives them a year to operate. We can monitor them, and then they have to reapply. And if we're still having issues, that gives you the opportunity to decide whether they deserve the special exception or not. So with the changes and with the hope that we've got an applicant and managers that will abide by the special exception with the conditions we have in place, staff is recommending that the application be approved.
Thank you, Susan. Any questions of Ms. Hart?
Okay.
Thank you, Susan. Chair wants to acknowledge Mr. John Childers.
That's different application.
That's another. Hey, sorry.
Ooh, you tricked me.
I'm sorry. I was getting ahead of you.
Then there is no opposition to this application.
All right. Motion before you is to recommend the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I'm delighted the staff got the applicant to agree to the 18-month sunset porch that we had gotten. There's been a lot of calls for service at that location. Not saying they're all attributable to Agami, but nonetheless, you can surmise that some of them had to have been. But hopefully, the sunset clause will give us a direct opportunity to assess performance over a period of a year or more and make a judgment from that point as to whether or not we want this special exception to continue. So I applaud staff for that, and I hope that the applicants here will abide by what they've agreed to abide by. With that, I vote yes.
Rest assured, we are watching this now. Next application, MJ's Tavern for a special exception to operate an entertainment establishment with alcoholic beverages at 4019 Granby Street. This is an application for the expansion of an existing entertainment establishment.
All right. So this application is for a request for an existing entertainment establishment proposing to expand into the rear outbuilding that's currently vacant, which requires a new special exception to come before you. And the site is located on the west side of Granby Street in the Riverview area, and the area is developed mainly with commercial activity, some residential nearby. And here are the hours and the seating you see has obviously expanded some, the capacity expanded some because of the expansion, but the hours are the same and the entertainment options are the same. And the building is located in a flood zone. We've been talking with the applicant and met with its architect, and they understand that. They know they will have to flood-proof the building to meet all of FEMA's requirements, and then again the city's additional floodplain requirements. And also, I'll just point out that the rear area of the site is going to be installing a proper landscape buffer around the parking. And the new landscape buffer yard will be located in the site that is also the lowest ground elevation, so should also help with stormwater runoff as it naturally drains by increasing the perviousness on that portion of the site where the sheet flow is expected to drain to, and also increasing some of the tree canopy cover. So with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Matt, quick, how is the flood proofing? What is it going to end up looking like? Is it going to be raised or wrapped or?
Well, not raised. It'll more than likely you won't be able to see it because it'll probably be installed on the inside. Usually with floodproofing, you install basically a type of like resin material that attaches to the inside of the concrete blocks, the CMU blocks, and then you could put some sort of finish over on the other side of that, so you still wouldn't necessarily see it. And then at the entrances, the openings, you would install a floodgate that you can remove, obviously, when there's not a storm. But then when you have an incoming storm, you would install the floodgates. And the good thing about this type of flooding, because it's mainly storm surge related, we don't really expect to have water come up and stay up. It's more going to fluctuate with the tide and the storm surge and the storm passes. So it's not the same as like a flooding that comes up and stays. Yep.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions of Mr. Simon? Thank you, Matthew.
All right.
Now, Mr. John Childers.
Any questions?
Thank you, sir. There is no opposition to this application. Any questions at all? Lenny?
Motion to recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Fraley?
Aye. We'll make that recommendation to council. Good luck.
All right. Next application is
We
number,
started 5.5 years ago, and this is our third expansion, so we're happy.
Keep it
Must have good food.
Come by, I'll just as good as the biscuits.
Lenny?
Number 15 is the American Legion for a special exception operating entertainment establishment with alcoholic beverages at 923 Glen Rock Road.
Thanks, Lenny. The chair acknowledges no opposition to this application. Here to answer questions in support of it, Al Stewart and Rodney Drummond. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. No opposition, Mr. Newcomb.
The motion to recommend that the special exception be approved, subject to conditions contained in the staff report. Mr. Hales?
Aye.
Ms. Austin?
Yes.
Mr. Houchins?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Newman?
Aye.
And Mr. Fraley?
Aye. Good luck with that, gentlemen. We'll make that recommendation to council.
All right.
New business.
New business. We have a request to initiate a zoning text amendment, Table 9A of the city zoning ordinance to include microbrewery as an allowable use by special exception in the HCG3 Ghent Historic and Cultural Conservation District.
Okay. So the HCG3 was created in 1998. Again, we've got three historic districts, HCG1, G2, G3. HCG1 and G2 really focus on residential. HCG3 was created for a couple of purposes, to recognize that there is actually commercial in the HCG1 and G2, but also to allow for the adaptive reuse of historic structures. In the HCG3 district, as it currently exists, these are the uses that are permitted: multifamily, single-family, townhouse, two-family, antique store, bed and breakfast by special exception, retail goods and service, ABC off-premise, again by conditional use permit, special exception, art studio, and church. What this amendment seeks to do is to allow microbrewery by special exception. Microbrewery is a fairly new concept. When we created the HCG3 in 1998, really didn't have microbrewery. So the request is to allow a microbrewery as a use in the HCG3 by special exception. Again, not right now pertaining to any particular site, but just to allow it in that commercial of the historic districts. Again, so today your vote would just be to allow us to move forward with that amendment for your next month's agenda. Okay.
Thank you, Susan. Susan, let me ask you just a generic question. I know you stated specifically microbreweries, but we're seeing micro distilleries and these types of things coming along now. Would that be something we would want to consider with this text amendment?
That was not the request that we got, but if that's something you all would want to.
Would you like to throw gas onto a fire?
Just a question. Thank you.
I mean, it's a good question. Do we want to come back, or is that? a use that?
You know, again,
was-
and we keep saying we're rewriting the zoning ordinance, and maybe we do want to look at maybe some additional uses in the HCG3 to allow, again, the adaptive reuse of many of the existing buildings that we have in our historic district. But perhaps now we should stick to what we got as the request.
Yeah, I hear you. That's the request. But as I said earlier, we've got a lot of very older buildings in our city that sit unutilized for extended periods of time, and a lot of the character of the city goes with it. And I'm not suggesting by any means that we should put a microbrewery in every one of these abandoned churches, but certainly we should allow for the opportunity to at least expand and explore options that would allow us to use these buildings so that they don't become eyesores on the city, and we take advantage of trying to save them and salvage them as best we can. That's a part of our ongoing character. But I understand the limitations of the amendment we have, and I respect that. Thank you. Robin, would you like to say something?
Robin Thomas, 913 West 21st Street, Suite C, Norfolk, Virginia, 23517. Thanks very much for putting this on the agenda today. This has been, we've needed this in order to have a chance of getting the special exception that Craig Riley is looking for the, at 739 Yarmouth for a microbrewery in the Unitarian Church. So without you actually sort of at least moving this initiative on to the next hearing, we would not be able to proceed. So Craig wasn't able to come today, but I'm here to say, hopefully, thank you for at least moving this on. We've met with the local residents on Yarmouth, and we've met with the Civic League, and we're scheduled to go back to the Civic League for the Development Committee, as well as the next general membership meeting. And there's some challenges, and Craig is working through those challenges, working on getting his parking letters and other support letters. So, but without this little piece here, at least moving, and we'll see what happens, next month. If it's all going to hell, then you can say, no, we don't want to do this right now. But I think, without this piece, at least even being on the docket, then we can't make progress next month. So just looking for support for that for today.
Well, I'm sure any application that you're associated with, Robin, is going to be helpful to that application.
Anyway, I think he's he's a good guy. He's actually going to be he's looking to be the owner of the building. He's found this good tenant that wants to come to Norfolk, and it's a challenge to look at what, if it's not this tenant, what other tenant would it be in the building apart from maybe another church. So if anybody's also got any other ideas or know of somebody who, apart from the microbrewery, thinks that they would like to have their business in a church, that would also be good to pass on to Craig. But right now we're kind of going full force on this this good applicant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. Any questions of Robin, commissioners?
Robin, the only comment I have, I asked this question downstairs as you make your community tour. Good luck. You see Band-Aids all over you in about a month. But I asked the question downstairs, microbreweries, it would have to go through a public hearing.
Yep.
Before any, so that's important for the community to know that just because this text amendment, if it does go through, doesn't mean it's by right it's going to happen. They're going to hear about it.
No, exactly. And there's was some comment at the Civic League, which there was, Susan was actually at the meeting that we had with the Yarmouth folks. Nobody from planning was at the Civic League, and there was some concern that by changing this property to HCG3, that sort of opening up Pandora's box. And so I think we'll just have to address that along with the, as I was looking actually, in the existing 9A land use table, the church is actually in HCG1 now, and is actually a non-conforming use because the church is not a listed use in that district. So that's maybe another thing at some point that could be cleaned up, and I guess we'll just do that another time. But so this is going to be a challenge, but I think we've got some good players, and we'll see if we can placate some of the concerns.
Best of
So,
luck to you.
Thank you.
We do appreciate that clarification though, Mr. Hills. Thank you. Matt? I'm calling Matt. Lenny?
Looking younger every day. The motion before you is to approve the proposed, or to allow the proposed text amendment to be presented for public hearing consideration. Mr. Hales.
Aye.
Ms. Austin.
Yes.
Mr. Houchins.
Aye.
Mr. Murphy.
Aye.
Dr. Newman.
Aye.
And Mr. Fraley.
Aye. We look forward to that report next month. Thanks so very much. Good luck with that, Robin. That concludes our public hearing. Mr. Melita, you have anything for us, sir?
No, sir.
Mr. Homewood?
No, sir.
Commissioners, any comment or question? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.